Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Camp Time is Real Time. It's your host, Sarah. We are talking to Liz Fernandes today about her time at camp. Liz was a counselor several years behind me. She worked at the pool, and she has a very cool story about how she got to camp and then ultimately how she went out with a bang on her last day of camp. It was really good connecting with Liz. I hadn't seen or talked to her in like 20 years, and it was really great catching up. Katy Sorensen joined us also, and we talked about some of the fun stuff that went on at Sing, and this is a good one. So sit back, enjoy, tell all of your friends to give at camptime_realtime a follow on Instagram, and to send me an email over at camptimefcdc@gmail.com. That's going to do it for me. Enjoy this one, guys. Oh my God. We are so excited to see you, Liz. How are you?
I'm good. I am in San Francisco, back in my apartment, which is awesome. I'm doing great. Yeah, feeling good, feeling healthy.
When did you start? Were you a tenderfoot?
Yeah, so I actually started when I was 4, which I thought that you weren't supposed to start until you were 5. So the legend goes, so both my parents worked full time. And my brother was 5 and I was 3, and my brother was just like super unhappy at daycare. And so my mom took the day off and just drove around to any camp that she could find. And every camp was like, we're really sorry, we're full. We're really sorry, we're full. Because it was like, the summer was already going, like all the registration was there. And she got to FCDC, and you can just kind of drive in, and she parks. And I guess here's my mom just like wandering around camp trying to find someone, and she runs into Gail.
Perfect.
And Gail's like, who are you?
Right.
And she was like, hi, I'm a desperate mother. Do you have any openings for the summer? And it just so happened that I think someone who was going for 6 weeks dropped out that day. And so the next day, my brother went to camp.
Come on.
Wow. Yeah. And so I apparently was super jealous of how much fun he was having at camp, couldn't wait to go, and started going when I was 4.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. Do you remember, or did your mom did you go for 6 weeks or just a couple to start?
It's always a 6-weeker.
Whoa, yeah. That's a lot. That's a lot as a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
Whoa. Yeah. And then were you like, I get that like your parents were desperate to have like a good place to go. Did you love it from the jump, or
Absolutely.
did it take a little bit? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was definitely a shy kid with some of the new things that I would do, but I feel like with camp right away, they're just so good about getting you excited and giving you space. Like if you're a shy kid, you have the space to be a shy kid for a while.
Right.
And so I think I was hooked from the start.
Oh, good to hear. Did you have Bonnie?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The best.
That's
camp legend.
Who else was in your tribe? Like anyone we would recognize?
So I was trying to think about this. I think the year that I became a CIT, there were only a few of us. Like I was trying to even think about who became a CIT. So I think Corey Ryan, if you guys remember Corey.
Oh, yes.
Year.
Yep. Okay.
And then the other person who I remembered is Paul, and I can't think of his last name.
Yes.
But,
Paul, if you're out there, give us your last name.
And I'm so sorry to anyone else who started as a CIT with me and who is a speaker with me. But I think the other thing that I was trying to remember is one of the years, I think my second to last year as a camper, there was some other funky thing where someone had dropped out of the Explorers for maybe just a session. And so they bumped me up to Explorer for a session. So I was with like Brittany and Andrew and that group for, I think it was just a session.
Yeah.
And then moved back. But I remember there was something kind of funky that, I mean, at this point, it's already like how many, decades ago, but there's also certain things that I'm going to claim are playing with my memory for.
Sure. Yeah. No, we'll allow it. I believe it. I can see them being like, she's been coming here 6 weeks forever. I think she can handle being one tribe up for
a
2
session.
weeks. Yeah.
For a session. Yeah.
Okay. So you were just 1 year behind that, Brittany, because that was my first tribe I had as a head.
No way.
When I was head of the Cherokees, which I had totally forgotten until I started doing this podcast, that I had the Cherokees for like 3 years, I think. Totally had forgotten.
Always
yeah, I know, right? And it's like, those are like rival tribes in my mind. My like very vivid memory of Liz Fernandes. And it was, I believe, when I was the head counselor of that tribe, but who knows at this point, it's a long time ago. And it was the first day of camp, and you had come in and you had like a big poster board with some sort of like countdown to camp or something like that you had been working on in the off season. Am I remembering this right?
Absolutely. You are absolutely remembering it right. So I loved to craft, and what better inspiration than FCDC. And so I've been trying to remember whether it was like a countdown to camp, but it had little numbers that you like took on and put off. And it was definitely some sort of moving count. And I don't remember if it was the number of days of camp or until camp was there again. Like, I think in my mind, if it was until camp started, in my mind, I was like, yeah, Gail's going to keep this up and she's going to be changing the numbers every day until, until camp starts.
Absolutely.
And I think that it was very kindly returned to me at the end of the year as a like, we so appreciated this. And then it hung in my room for longer than I want to say.
Yeah, no, you can say that's okay. Yeah. The reason that I think that sticks out in my mind so vividly is because that's what I would do. Because apparently calendars didn't exist. Make my own calendar.
Right.
And then I had absolutely the days. It was like whatever, 320 days, whatever, until, and that's what I would do like on the last night of camp, in those hours of like, I can't believe it's over. Oh no. And then when I ever saw you walking with someone, I just jumped to like, I was like, well, she's at my level.
1,000%. Just dreaming about camp every second that I'm not at camp.
Exactly. So I left. And then one of the times I came back to visit, Tom's like, Liz is going to play soccer at USC. And I was like, what? And he's like, oh yeah. I love it, especially because like, because it's what I can relate to, but like that it's this whole other opposite part of your life that isn't like everything you do. So what was your soccer athletics balance with camp?
I mean, that is such a crazy story because like I always loved soccer, but I was never the most talented player. Like never even like didn't make all-star lists for my town or anything like that. I think what coaches always liked about me was that I had a good attitude. And so when I was getting ready to graduate, I wasn't ready to stop playing soccer. And I knew all the schools that I wanted to go to for academics were all Division I schools, but there was no way I was getting recruited to a D1 school. And so I made the decision. It was like, academics are going to be the reason that I choose a school. And then I'm going to do whatever I can to figure out how to get in front of a coach. And when I went to USC on an accepted students day, it was before they had done this like high tech rebuild of their student athlete center. And so you could just walk right in. It's a very kind old woman. I was like, do you know where the women's soccer coaches are? And she's like, oh yeah, sweetie, they just got back. They're eating pizza in the office. Why don't you go see them?
Come on. So
I walked back and I was like, you guys don't know me, but I want to play for your team. And they were like, yeah, we have no idea who you are. Like, how fast did you run a 400? Like how did your team rank in high school? And I'm like, not very fast, not very high. Like, give me a shot. And crazy enough, they did. And so they told me to come to a week-long tryout. So that was like, this was the first year that I was a head counselor at camp. And I had always, like, camp had always taken priority.
Yep.
And so it was the first year that I was a head counselor at camp, and I was going to have to take a week off to go to this tryout. And so I talked to Tom about it, and he was like, you got to do it. And so I flew out, and somehow I made the team. And it was like, all right, we need you to pack up your bags and come back here in a few days. And so I had to leave camp early, just like that.
How early are we talking?
I think I left a week early.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was like, it was heartbreaking. And at that point, that was also kind of like, okay, training is going to be starting in late July, early August every year. And that meant I wasn't going to be going back to camp. And so it was all these big emotions. And then crazy side story, on my last day, everyone at camp had done this really nice thing for me. I think they gave me the camp photo that year. Like a bunch of, just really nice stuff. And my mom had even come and surprised me there. So I'm pulling out, like, tears in my eyes. And I was pulling out of right where Gail's office is. And you know how that's a blind drive.
Mm-hmm.
I was pulling out, this car comes speeding along the road. I see that he's not going to stop and I'm not going to make it. And so I slam on the brakes. He hits my car gets wrecked. I'm fine, but there's a loud crash.
Oh my God.
Gail comes running out, neighbors come running out. I don't know if I had a cell phone at this point.
Right.
I think my mom's down the road because she had surprised me at camp. My last day at camp, I literally left by wrecking my car in front of Gail's office. Like, I don't want to leave here.
Right. Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my God.
Crazy.
Wow.
Wait, so that was your last day ever at camp.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. What a way to go out with a bang there.
Hey, someone had to say it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Literally
Also,
without moving.
Also, I love that the Fernandes women have this predisposition to walking into places and saying, hey, I really have no reason to be here, but can you help me out? Like, I want to send my kids to this camp. Can I be on your team? Like,
yeah, totally. I'm here, you're here. Can we do something?
Can we do
Right.
something? Like, what can we do?
Totally. That's a great parallel.
Love that parallel. That really stands out to me.
That's awesome. That's like, I wonder if Gail like knew, she could just tell, right? Like, whereas like we're learning more and more that Tom was actively recruiting his students who like to come like help make the special sauce at camp. Gail's like, I got a good feeling about this one. Like,
Yeah.
we've got a spot for you and we'll take your too young daughter also.
Totally. Seriously though.
What were some of the activities you were doing as an assistant? Like, what track were you on? Kind of, where was Tom like, I know where we need Liz?
I was at the pool right away. So
Really?
yeah, like at 15, I got the phone call, which is like as early as you can start lifeguarding. And I think the first year that you're an assistant, I got the phone call of like, do you want to be on pool staff? And for me, I was like, well, I want to come back to camp. So I'll take whatever, like if pool staff, I'll be on pool staff.
Yeah.
Plus pool staff's like such a fun place to be.
Yeah.
So I really only had the experience of jumping around as a CIT. And I think even one of those years as a CIT, I was a video CIT. And when you were a video CIT, you were there for 2 weeks. And so I forget who were the head counselors, whether it was like Alex and Todd, maybe, I don't know. But like one of the summers as a CIT, I only bounced around a few times because I spent all that time at video.
I actually haven't talked to anyone who's like just been pool staff, like straight up, because it's funny. There's not like any like official difference, but there is, right? It's like staff and pool staff. It's the only, like, it's not like, oh, you're on adventure staff. Like it's just not a thing. So we can get into it a little bit. So like, what are some of the things you remember? Who was on the pool staff with you?
Yeah. So I think pool staff for me, Shannon was there when I was on pool staff.
Mm-hmm.
And then
which Shannon, Delaney or Rice?
Shannon Rice.
Okay. All right.
Rice. Yeah. And I think it was a pretty young group the years that I was there. Like Jen Friday was someone who was there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then Karen.
Karen Ferry
was on pool staff.
Yep.
And then do you remember Garrett and Austin? They were brothers and both of them were only there for maybe like 2 years each and maybe a year overlapping.
Yes.
I think they were Medfield recruits from Tom.
Classic.
Yeah. And so like they were each there for a little while. There was some, like, and then there were a couple random like 1 year folks that I think came in and out. But I think it was a pretty young crew.
So what did you think about, it dawned on me when I was on the pool staff, I was like, oh, I'm going to have, now that I'm here all the time, that means every day, first activity, I have to be at the pool, which when you're a camper, you like, you know, it as an explorer that it's coming. And like, there's like one other time and you're like, oof, that is pretty early and pretty chilly to be in the pool.
Totally.
It was like,
And I want to say there was like a rule that you had to get in at least once every lesson. And so you could delay it. Like you could have the kids tread water and sing camp songs.
Yeah.
Because it was like, one of the nice things was there were the Red Cross levels kind of like told you what kids needed to do. And so occasionally you could be like, oh, Red Cross levels, like they have to tread for 5 minutes and be able to do it for a few minutes with their hands up.
That's right.
And so you'd be like, all right, guys, get in the pool this morning. We're going to sing Black Socks. Get your hands out of the air while doing it. But then eventually you had to get in.
Yeah.
That was cold. And you had to get in no matter what the weather was. Like, unless everyone was changing up their activities. And occasionally we would get put in the tent with music, but it was so rare that would happen. To be drizzling. And as long as there was no thunder or lightning, like you were in the water and you were swimming, and that's how it was going to be.
As a direct result of that session that it rained every day, I maintain, and I know I've referenced it on this podcast, but that session killed rainy days for us. It rained every single day. I'm sure you guys, I know Katie, you were there. Liz, I'm sure you were there for this. Yeah. And it was like, it just rained every day. And so we got to the point where if it was drizzling, we're like, we're going on camp.
Yeah.
That's it.
It rained every single day for 2 weeks. And we just got to the point where it was like, we're doing camp in the rain.
Yeah. Like bring a raincoat and it will be fine.
Fine.
But yeah, with that early morning swim, it was like, okay, it's like the, you don't think about that when you're like, oh, be at the pool all summer, get a nice tan. Be chilly at 9 o'clock in the morning sometimes.
Sure can be. Yeah. It sure can be.
So what would you do with, say, like junior campers? Was that a typical lesson or a little different?
I feel like junior campers, there was always the test to see like who could be in the deep end on their own and be comfortable. Mm-hmm. And then we would do a little bit of the stuff, like one of the things I'll always remember is one of the teaching hacks was teaching junior campers to blow bubbles. And you would say like, talk to the fishies, listen to the fishies. And that's how you would like get them to like, learn how to turn their heads.
That's so cute.
That's amazing. Who taught you that? No one taught me that.
Yeah. I don't even know. But it was like,
oh, Sarah, was that not part of your curriculum?
No, I don't. No. I don't recall that. It's like, who's teaching this lesson?
So I feel like there would be a little bit of that we would sneak in and getting junior campers comfortable with like sticking their head underwater. But mostly I feel like we just spent 30 minutes like catching them, like jumping into the deep end. It was like, all right, jump on in.
Yep. Yeah. And like occasionally being like, whoa, 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 like slow down. I'm not quite ready. There's someone in my arms. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Been treading for 30 minutes and I'm exhausted.
Exactly. But do go ahead. That's fine. So did you, I'm assuming, did you get your lifeguard certification from Kelly?
Yes, absolutely.
How was that?
Oh my God. I mean, it's so fun that you get to go to camp before camp has started, because that's where they would do it.
Right.
And then, it's not just people from camp. Kelly's certifying a bunch of different people, but then you like feel kind of special because the lay of the land.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then there was also, I don't know, I get test anxiety and I was like, I have to pass. If I don't pass, I'm not going to be able to go to camp.
Right.
But it was awesome. She's such a good teacher. And I think Karen also was getting certified the year that I was getting certified. So I kind of had a friend that was there, which was really fun.
That's nice.
You got to, but it's just so funny that like, that's how I got my lifeguard certification. I want to say that it's good for a couple of years.
Yeah. I think it is. I recall the portion where you have to swim, however long it is, maybe like 500 yards.
500 yards.
And that was the first time, because I never did like swim team or anything. Oh, and that was the first time I was like, whoa, this is a lot. Because I went out like full force, just like swimming. And like, and it's like 20 laps, like, back and forth. It's a lot. So I got through like 1.5 back and I'm like, well, I don't think I can keep this pace up for much longer. And I was like, 20 laps. And I remember it in my mind being like, this is a lot. Swimming is hard. That was the first time it ever crossed my mind.
I feel the same way. And there's another moment that I don't think I'll ever forget, which is when there was someone who was a 1 year, I think his name was Josh, and he was like a big dude. He was like 6 foot something.
Mm-hmm.
And you had to do the drills where someone is like passed out in the pool. And I got partnered with him. And I'm 5'3".
Right.
And
Perfect.
he fully leaned into it. Like he was like, dead weight in the pool. And I'm over here like trying to pull him to the side. And I'm like, hey buddy, do you think you can like just kick a little bit? He's like, I'm supposed to be dead. And I was like, no, I need to pass right now. And like, this is where I'm lifeguarding,
right.
with little kids.
Yeah.
So I just need you to help me out a little bit.
And the Oscar goes to Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So, all right. So you were ahead for 1 year. What were you the head of, and who's your tribe?
Yeah. So I was still at the pool, and I want to say that it was the Shawnees.
Okay.
Sounds right. And I think there was some sort of setup where we kind of knew that I had gotten this opportunity. Like I was training all summer.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had found out before camp had started that I was going to get this opportunity to try out. And so I was like waking up at 6 a.m. to practice juggling and then go to camp and then would like train afterwards.
Right.
And so I think we knew that there was a chance that I would leave early. And so I'm pretty sure that I always had like rock star assistants with me and potentially even 2. Like I want to say that when I left, it was Alana and Sam or something like that, where it was like, oh, it doesn't matter if I step out because there are these 2 incredibly competent people who could both be head counselors on their own that were like with me. So I want to say that it was something kind of like that, where I might have had 2 assistants.
Yeah.
I was looking at the pool.
How much younger are those guys than you?
I think they're only a year.
Just a year? Okay. Yeah, no, those 2, like Sam Wolpert and Alana, those guys were part of Kat's tribe when I had them as the Navajos, and they're just like that whole tribe. Solid. Yeah.
Super solid group of people.
What's it like? So Katy, you have this too, but Liz, what's it like going to and working at camp with your brother being there? Because he was also like a well-known camper and counselor.
I was thinking about this, and I feel like the years that I worked there were a lot of siblings. So there was like, do you remember Rob and Dan? Yeah. And then the Griechies.
The Griechies,
yeah. And then I think the McLeods, like Brittany was working there with her little brother at one point. Yeah. And so there were a lot of, I'm like, I can't believe there wasn't some competition where they had siblings square off. Like, how did that never happen? It was so fun because I feel like we were always close enough in age that like at first we were too close. And so we fought, and then we got to be at camp as we came into each other's orbits as people. Yeah. But there was also, I think one of the funny things, which I wanted to say is, so Scott, he was saying with Sip Inside, he was like, I think I did it a 3rd time with someone and it was a joke. Like, I can't remember who it was. Yeah. Pretty sure it was me. And it was a joke. One of those ones where it was like hand over the mouth.
Nice.
Because my brother had this time period where he was painfully overprotective of me and everyone knew it. And so they would just come up with jokes to try to get a rise out of him. And so I think that Sip Inside was one of those examples of like, we're going to get Mikey riled up. We're going to have Scott and Liz do Sip Inside.
Yeah. Just to poke, right?
To poke a little bit.
Yeah. Now that I have both of you here, Scott's other story about Tom thinking, hey, let's get a brother sister Sip Inside. As it's happening, like, what are both of you thinking as he's like, I've got a good idea?
I just remember being a teenager mortified, like sitting up there being like, I'm stuck. Like, I'm sure we got to camp late that day or something.
Right.
And so it's like, we need to pay a penance, but like, please, dear God, don't let it be this. Right. And the camp is getting fired up as Tom's egging it on. And I'm just sitting there like mortified.
It might have been me. It might have been one of the other Katys who actually ran up and grabbed you and pulled you off the stage and was like, no, this is not happening.
I think it was you. I think it was you, and I swear like the Chariots of Fire song was playing in my mind as you like ran slow motion down the
not happening. I'm not gonna allow
like,
this.
grab me. And you were like, no, no, this is not happening. Just being like, thank you so much. Like
someone needed to intervene, and it was just like, no, this is not, we're not doing this. We're not making this a thing.
Yeah. We've got dead ants, we've got gray squirrel, we've got plenty of other options
we could do.
Yeah.
Please don't make me sip inside with my brother. I don't care if it's just a kiss on the cheek.
So you had mentioned a few minutes ago about how your brother kind of developed this little protective thing about you.
Totally.
And obviously, like, you're gorgeous. So do you remember hearing this quite often at Sing? Hi, Liz.
Oh my God. I totally forgot about that.
Which was borderline harassment, I think. But, so what would happen is that during Sing, like, boy counselors would raise their hand and Tom would call them up thinking that they had something to sing or funny to do, and they would just stand and stare at her and they'd go, hi, Liz. And then they'd sit down and Michael would get so upset. He would get so mad.
And so it was just a thing. It was like, of course we're going to keep poking you, because if that gets you upset, easy. We've got a fun target all summer long.
And I do hope that someone was checking in with you to make sure that it wasn't bothering you, because that's kind of not okay. But
oh my God.
It was
That's
this
so funny.
like almost every Sing. I remember, hi, Liz.
Totally. I completely forgot about it until you said that. And the moment that you said it, I was like, oh my God, yeah.
Like
I remember that.
That's in my brain. And it's just like, oh my God, like what?
Oh my God. So in terms of like, Liz, when you think back to camp, what am I remembering? Like, what are some of the things that pop into your head?
The bell and ringing the bell and not wanting to ring the bell. And then I used to love the activities in the woods. And so that feeling of like when you got an activity in the woods and you were lining up at the bridge, that was awesome. And then just some of the legendary counselors. I know John Panziaco has been talked about a lot, but he was just such a legend in my mind. And it's counselors like him that come up. But it also just this feeling of like, we were talking about soccer in college and playing soccer in college and realizing like, oh, there's more to me than just a soccer player. And I think what I always loved about camp is I got to lean into all those different aspects of who I was. Like I was an athlete, but I also loved arts and crafts, and I loved to sing, and I loved to dance, and I loved to do theater, and I got to do all those things. And so just like running around and being able to be myself and do any of those things. And so I think those are some of the things that come up. And then some of the other stuff are also, I've heard you talk a lot on the podcast about how camp was just so much fun for counselors and some of the stuff that we would do. And like, I don't know if anyone's talked about it yet, but I remember the years that I was there, we would rotate between synchronized swim and karaoke.
Ooh, we
and
haven't talked
the
about
one
that.
year would be a synchronized swim year where it was sort of like a sub competition to the competitions.
Right.
And
Yep. Yeah.
then the next year was karaoke.
Okay.
And they would rotate between, and I had so much fun. I remember like taking Sing off and 4 of us would be going to the pool, choreographing with so much integrity and like passion and seriousness to like an NSYNC song. And like, no, Corey, you need to wait another beat before you jump into the pool. So
Time is off. Your time is off.
Do you want the Butterfinger or not?
I remember the same exact thing. I remember doing a synchronized swim with Sam. Sam was on my team, and I remember having this very serious conversation with him about our wardrobe and about me saying to him, like, I'm going to bring in one of my string bikini tops, and we have to make sure it fits around your rib cage so that you can wear it. And it was this very serious, very like business oriented, like we gotta do like a dress rehearsal with the bikini top, like
right.
What? Yeah. Because the key was like, if you phoned it in, everyone knew and it wasn't as fun. And
Yeah.
I remember one year, I think Dan was my partner in karaoke, and we had made it pretty far. And then I want to say for the final competition, like we had just gotten, everything was really busy. We hadn't had the time to practice. And so we decided to dress up as Blue Man Group, and there's no singing there.
Nice.
So we like painted our faces blue, like got a PVC pipe and like did the whole thing. But like the competition was a karaoke competition,
Right.
and that's what the camp wanted.
Yeah.
And I remember like people could tell like, oh yeah, they were pressed for time. This is what they had to do. And you wanted it to be a fun experience for everyone. And so you wanted to put all that energy into it. And so it mattered if the bikini fit around Sam's ribcage.
It did. It mattered so much.
Yeah.
And turns out it fit. So he wore it.
Perfect. There was nothing better. So before, I don't think I ever did synchronized swim. It may have been there. I can't remember, but there's nothing better than, particularly on a hot day, when it's sing and Tom's like, assistants, like go take a dip in the pool. Remember those days?
Yes.
And like, it was so cool. And it happened maybe once a year. And so being in the pool was amazing, but it was also, even when you were at sing, you just saw everyone in the pool. I don't know. I remember looking over being like, good for them. Like,
Totally.
great.
Totally.
Yeah.
I feel like it was sort of a rite of passage that if you were on the pool staff, then you were involved in every counselor competition in the water.
Yeah.
And you always, anything in the water, you were participating in it.
For safety.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
But
Belly flop, you were in it. Like
that's
Battle
right.
Royale, you were in it.
Right. For safety. But Ty and I were talking about it. So many of the counselor competitions do end up at the pool or like our pool adjacent that it's like almost everyone. They're like, we got to grab someone from pool staff. So there's like, just like the race back and forth. There's their battle, there's belly flop. Were you there? There was one year that they just took the kayaks,
put them in the pool.
The gauntlet?
Sure. That's fine. And they were like, to your point, they're like, well, we have to have a lifeguard. We're like doing this. But Kelly would also, it was funny with that, just the race back and forth. Like she would go over that list and be like, you can't have that person in there. So there was like a little bit of a method to the madness, which like as a camper, I never considered, but I was like, nah, it makes sense. Like we can't
absolutely.
Have, like someone who can't swim. When you were a CIT, were you doing Hermie the worm?
Yeah.
But that was like the first, like you officially work here. Totally. Like you guys figured out you're going to eat lunch in the barn. And you have like, a couple days and you're going to do this silly thing. And I remember that being the like, where you really saw, because of my CIT class, there were 6 of us. And it was interesting to me. I was like, oh, this person is stepping up. Wouldn't have pictured that. And like, I wouldn't have done it that way. And then like, but then just being like, we're 13 and we're responsible for this whole thing that like people understand. Yeah. And like, those were like those special things at like lunch and sing where there's like a certain subset got to do something. I thought it stuck with me for whatever reason. But
I think another one of the things that stuck with me of being an assistant, I remember, was even though I was at the pool, one of the things the assistants used to do is get dressed up and read to junior camp. Do you guys remember this?
Yes.
Yeah. And being like, oh yeah, like we're doing special things for junior camp, and as an assistant, and so you'd pick the book, you'd get dressed up in a theme for the book, you'd go down there. And I remember that was one of the things that's one of the things that just sticks out to me they were these small but super thoughtful things that we would do to make sure everyone was getting attention, everyone was having fun, and that as a counselor made you feel really connected and to everyone.
At FCDC, everyone's all together. Like sing is the glue. Tom says it's true.
The glue.
We're all together in the morning. We're all together at the end of the day. But then you've got assistants going down to junior camp. and checking in with those guys. And you've got, you know, all of the tribes coming through and seeing the counselors at their activities, and like everyone knows each other, everyone's in it together. And that's like part of the special sauce that like makes camp just like more than just like a place to be for 6 weeks.
I feel like one of the things that I also think about with camp is no matter what you were doing, there was always fresh air. Like you were pretty much always outside. Even the activities that were in the barn, the doors were flown open. Like, you know, you were just a step away from being outside. And I think that's one of the things that I also loved so much. You were just outside all the time.
All day.
Yeah. And it's also the feeling of like, you were going to be hot. Like, and if you ever walked into the nurse's office just wherever, and you're like, oh, that's nice. Like,
one of the nice things about being at the pool staff is you were real close to the nurse's office.
Yes. Like, I have to photocopy something.
Oh, this kid needs a Band-Aid. I'm fine. No, you need a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
We're going to go to
We're going to the nurse.
Keep walking.
You have popsicles in here?
Yes.
So Brie Lynn, she was like my camp older sister.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I think about, I think she's 4 years older than me. And when I think about someone who I always knew that I could just call no matter what it was, it was her. And I feel like she's in the background of like all of those kind of memories for me. Like I remember, you know, every time that we would get our paychecks, she would take mine, she'd like fold it up and put it away. She'd be like, put that thing away. She'd be like, doesn't matter what we get paid to do what we love. Like, doesn't matter. It's peanuts. And I remember that like that kind of philosophy was like how I looked at camp.
I love that so much. Yeah. Are you still in touch with her?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. On the pod.
I will say one thing. I love how like random camp knowledge like comes back in your regular life. Yeah. And just sort of like comes out. And there's the obvious stuff like knowing how to build a fire. And my boyfriend makes fun of me all the time. So I'm like, I'll handle the fire. Don't worry. And he's like, yeah, I know you went to camp. Like, I know.
That's great.
but there was one instance where we were surfing and he got water stuck in his ear. And it was a couple days and he like couldn't get it out. And I was like, oh, just dilute some alcohol and put it right in there. And I was like, where did that come from? I'm pretty sure that we just like diluted some alcohol at the pool and put it in kids' ears to stave off swimmer's ear, and it always worked.
And we all have that scent memory. We could identify that blindfolded. Just that's the swimmer's eardrops. That smell.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yep. Put a couple of cotton balls in it. Yeah. You'll be fine. Good to go.
Tilt, hold it there. Right. Give it out. Tilt, chin. I need your chin up. Chin up in the air.
You're like, I'm watching it drip out of your ear. We have to do it again.
Super low key. So I'm sitting there. It's free swim. And there's a kid who I know is not a super strong swimmer, and he hasn't crossed the lane line. Like he's still in the shallow end, but you know, it kind of dips.
Pretty deep. Yeah.
And I see him and he's like at the dip and he's starting to get a little bit distressed. So I'm keeping an eye on it. I'm like, oh, he's going to sort it out. It's going to be fine. But then he starts showing full signs of a distressed swimmer in this. And so
oh my gosh,
step in. I'm up to my waist, you know,
yeah.
Up to my waist, just like pluck him up, like put him off the side. And for the longest time, like that was the only save I'd ever made as a lifeguard. It was just like, oh, here you go. But it was like, it was real. And I was so thankful for the lifeguard training that Kelly did, because I actually was able to see like, oh no, this kid's distressed. Like he's worried. It doesn't matter if his toes can touch the ground. I have to jump in this moment and just pop him on the side.
I have to wade into my waist. Yeah. Ooh, that I don't know if I've heard of anyone making a save at camp.
Does that even count?
I think so. I think it does.
100%. Yeah.
And then good job. The other funny pool story that I'll never forget, that is one of those things that just makes me think of like, oh yeah, that's camp. But it was junior camp, and there was this one junior camper who was like definitely sweet on me. And he was like, you're my favorite counselor. And I want to say Patty was his head counselor, and she did this thing where she would take pictures of all the kids, and at the end of the session she would frame one of them, and I think they might have even made the frames. It's like one of the activities,
what a
and
good counselor.
they would get they would get sent home with this picture. And he comes running up to me at the end of the session, and he's like, Liz. He was like, you're in my picture. Like, you're in my picture. And I was like, no way, bud. Like, let me see it. And he turns it around, and it's him in the pool. And he's like, got his goggles on, and he's smiling. And it's just my butt. Let's all. It's just my butt. It's just like, oh my
Come on.
God. And it's so cool to watch people grow up at camp. Like, hearing Fred Berger, like, I was like, I don't think I was a head counselor, but I definitely was an assistant or a CIT, or, like, had him as a camper, and same with Shay. And I don't remember if we were counselors together, but it made sense to me. But it was that feeling of like, man, I remember these guys when they were little, and now they're awesome head counselors,
Yeah.
It's super cool to see people grow up at camp.
So I like that you said it very formally, like Fred Berger, as if that were his name.
Fred Berger.
Yeah.
That's his name. What are you talking about?
That's awesome. He apparently is he's coming back this year, and apparently he is the counselor who's like finding out where everyone is, and like saying, oh, did you hear about this? Scott's gonna be in boating. He like has like the red string on the wall, like putting everything together. Yeah. And I guess he's the person. And like, I think it's so cool because from the outside, you've got this guy who you wouldn't think would be the typical camp counselor, right? This like pretty cool guy, got a lot going on. And he's like, no, like my focus is camp. That's it. And that's the thing. That's the thing about camp, is that we're all that person.
Totally.